Welcome to the Level Up Show. I am your host, Olivia.K, a grateful member of the John Maxwell Leadership Team, and I help people gain unwavering faith and inner peace to overcome any obstacle and create an abundant legacy for their family, community, and even extending out globally. So, as we come to the Level Up Show today, we're going to be talking about overcoming. And I have a very special guest here today. His name is Jeremy Miller, and you're going to hear his story about overcoming. So, welcome, welcome. We are so grateful to have you here joining us. And so, I'm going to have you take the floor. Jeremy, can you introduce yourself? Tell us where you're from, and then we'll jump into your story.
Yeah, absolutely, Olivia. Great to connect with you here and be with you here today. Again, my name is Jeremy Miller, and I've grown up in Ohio, currently in Central Ohio, and that's where I'm coming to you from today, from my tiny home.
Awesome. So you're going to hear all about why Jeremy is in a tiny home, and we're going to do this in a two-part series. So today we're going to talk about his overcoming. We're going to talk about his journey from sickness to health, and he's going to start from the beginning when he realized that he was not as healthy as he thought he was. That happened, Jeremy. What's that timeline look like for you?
And you cut out there for just 1 second, but you were saying the timeline from like when I realized I was not well.
Yeah, what was the first cue to you where you realized something's wrong? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting question because as I've thought about this over the years and dug into my story, so by my mid 20s, probably about 25, 26, I was really unwell. I started having really severe gut issues, brain fog issues, went through a couple bouts of depression, chronic fatigue, and I was really struggling. I wasn't in good shape. And so by the mid 20s, my body was sending me a pretty loud signal. And as I looked back on it, I realized that I was getting subtler signals my whole life. I used to get strep throat all the time and tonsillitis when I was younger and used to miss a lot of school and be homesick. I think it was the summer before eighth grade, I had meningitis. And started noticing in high school that sometimes when I went out to eat I didn't feel so well, and I'd get stomach aches and had had a round of asthma and different conditions like that, and just my stomach seemed to be more sensitive than the average person, than my friends. I remember being on a study abroad trip in Italy in college and eating all this delicious food, but then I would get bloated and feel really uncomfortable and unwell and have to lie down. And so it was kind of this slow build when I really started reflecting back and looking at it. But by my mid 20s, the signal got really loud and I could no longer ignore it.
Yeah, I think that it's not that uncommon that perhaps people might notice issue gut related where I didn't realize that it wasn't normal until I realized it wasn't normal. And
Right.
sometimes there's that turning point where it gets loud, like that siren, like so loud, where it might get loud or something might just get bigger. And there's that turning point where you go, okay, something is not right. And what was that? What was that? Do you have a memory that's specific in your head where you were like, okay, this is like there's something wrong here, and I need to get to the bottom of it. Was there a time that you felt like that?
Yeah, a couple memories in particular. I remember I moved back to Columbus, Ohio after traveling around a little bit. I went to university at Ohio State and had a lot of friends in Columbus. And so I moved back and I was living with some prior classmates, and I had my job and was working. And I remember there were a couple days that it went beyond just the stomach ache to some pretty interesting symptoms. Like I remember one day my mouth went numb and tingling, and then I couldn't move my arms. My arms just went completely numb, and this was accompanied by bloating and GI stress, and I couldn't think straight, and I was feeling really unwell. And so at that point, I thought, oh my gosh, what is going on? Do I have appendicitis? Am I having a stroke? Is there something? seriously wrong right now with my body. And so I had my roommate drive me to the hospital, and I kind of like get to the emergency room and throw my arms up on the desk and like, can you please help me? Like something's wrong. And they're like, have you been partying? Like, what have you been doing? I was like, no, I woke up this morning and like 2 hours later, like I can't move my arms. Like I can't think straight. There's something wrong. I don't know what it is, but I need help.
Mhm.
And so they just, put me in the chair and 3 or 4 hours later, take me back, scan me, and couldn't find anything wrong with me. They're like, "Oh, Jeremy, you're constipated. Like your gut's all backed up. You're not digesting your food well. Just take some propylene glycol and call us in the morning." And something inside of me like knew that wasn't right. And then there was a second time where I ended up in a situation like that, waking up, sit up straight, and all of a sudden I'm incredibly dizzy and my gut, I'm a thin man, but it looked like I had like a 7 month pregnant body because my belly was protruding so largely, and I just didn't know what was going on. And so those two situations come to mind. And so I go to the doctor, go to a family doctor, a GI specialist. They prescribe a couple medications for me, which don't help. And then, the GI doctor, I'm talking with them and he's like, well, if you eat these foods, you should just stop eating them, if they upset your stomach. And I said, I understand that on some level, but this goes a lot deeper. It's not just like I have a tummy ache. It's like I can't think straight. I barely have the energy to sit up straight sometimes. And making it through the day is just so tough. Like there's got to be something wrong. And I remember kept pressing for answers, pressing for answers. And as I was doing that, the guy pretty much got heated at me and yelled at me. He's like, "I told you, if these things upset your stomach, stop eating them." And for me, that was always the thing, the digestion. Like that was the first link for me, the physical. And so on the physical level, I was like, oh, I eat this thing, now I don't feel well. But I'm later realizing, that was just a trigger. That wasn't really the issue or the problem on a deeper level. But at that point, I realized, okay, the traditional medical route is not helping me here. I'm going to have to figure this out on my own or explore alternative paths. And so I just went on a voracious mission, listening to podcasts, reading books, learned about ketogenic diet, and would feel a little better for a little while, and learned a little bit about some fasting, feel a little better for a while. But then I would get sick again, and it would be worse. And eventually, I remember finding the GAPS diet. There was this woman, Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, GAPS, gut and psychology syndrome. And I remember reading her book and thinking, oh my gosh, this sounds like this makes perfect sense to me. The relationship between the gut and the brain. Because I get these stomach aches and I couldn't think straight. I had no energy. I was like, what is going on? And so I followed the diet and made all my own bone broths and homemade sauerkraut and yogurt. And like I could barely eat it without my gut disrupting. And so it just kept getting worse and worse. And I said, okay, so the food is definitely not it, but I just don't know what's going on. So I'm filtering my water. I'm getting good sleep, the best that I could at the time. I'm making homemade bone broths. I'm buying all organic. I'm making my own ferments at home, but I'm still getting sicker and sicker. And so I remember reading and listening and finding more podcasts. And at some point, on the podcast, she was being interviewed by this other doctor, and his name was Dr. Pompa. And I started listening and found Dr. Pompa's story. And when I read his story, I was like, wait a minute. Like it started connecting some dots. What this guy is sharing, that sounds like me. And not only does it sound like me, it sounds like this guy figured out what was actually going on and figured out a way to heal the body on a physical level.
Yeah, that's incredible to think about the severity of it. You knew that this is not normal. You just knew that you knew like this cannot be right. The amount, just talking about numbness of the hands and the arms, not being able to feel them, that had to have been really scary. And for them to tell you, oh, you're just backed up, you're constipated, send you home. I mean, you knew that you had to figure this out. I can only imagine how scary that must have felt when you talk about being really on the thinner side naturally and then the bloating being really severe. This is a very clear indication that something is wrong. There's something definitely wrong. This is not normal. It's not your normal everyday thing. And then you go and you seek doctors and they just don't have the answers. And sometimes that is not a uncommon thing. I have found, especially when it's autoimmune situations, we know that the mind is attached to the gut, but then in traditional medicine, I have found, and throughout my healing journey, my husband's healing journey, that the basic medical tests will not pick up certain situations or certain illnesses, perhaps like what you had. And so you can get all the testing and pay all the money and do all the things only to find yourself kind of, chasing your tail and getting back, feeling like you're not getting anywhere and you're just going in circles. So I can only imagine how difficult that must have been. And you also were so committed to yourself, where you were like, I'm gonna do everything to get myself better. I'm gonna research, I'm gonna eat the best foods. I'm gonna even go as far as, spending so much time in the kitchen where I make my own bone broths. I'm going to make sure I drink the cleanest water and buy the best, cleanest food, only to find out that that just was not doing the job. So then you come across Dr. Pampa, and then we start to get a shift, right? You found somebody who experienced what you experienced but had healing, and he was on the other side of that. So he was able to help you be, and not just magically like give you the he didn't just give you the way to do it. You had to actually apply it, because very oftentimes we might know what to do, but we don't take the steps to actually do it. So could you share with us some of the things, or like three big things that you did, three or some, whether it be two, one, two, three things that helped you get to the other side? Dr. Pampa has you do this, and what were some of those things that you did to get some healing, some relief?
Yeah. I mean, so first I want to say I probably followed along the blog and his website and his podcast for a year and a half, 2 years before ever making an outreach. My girlfriend at the time saw how sick I was. I had become self-employed so I could be home sick on the couch because I literally didn't have the energy to go up and go to an office and work with people because I'd be like wiped out for hours at a time. And so I put in a plea to help email pretty much to the website, and someone gets back to me. They say, "Hey, this is the program. This is what it looks like." And then like 2 days later, I get a call, and it's the guy I've been listening to on the podcast. It's Dr. Pompa. And I was like, "Whoa!" I didn't expect him to actually call me, but he did. And I'm like, "Okay, my case must be pretty severe if he's calling me out, but this is great." And he said, "I really don't do it so much, but I'll take you on as a personal client if you want." And it just felt like divine intervention. So I said, "Yeah, let's go." And that was the game changer, number one, reaching out for support and not trying to figure it out all on my own anymore. And then he guided me through a series of tests. And I found out that, I had mold toxicity. I renovated a couple, in particular, one old home when I was younger, not too long before all this started happening, and slept in the basement of another old home while I was renovating that home. And so, I had the mold exposure, but then also a big one for me was finding out that I had heavy metals and my mercury levels were off the chart. Like 7x the threshold before they start causing problems in the body. I sent in my results, and I got a one-word response back that said, "Wow." And I remember that's not the response you want when you're sending your tests to the guy that actually really knows about this stuff. But it was where I was at. And the next call I had with him, he's like, "Dude, like, I don't even know how you're still alive." And I said, "Well, that makes two of us because it's just through sheer will at this point." I was very, very unwell. And so knowing that I had this very high toxic load on a physical level, he started guiding me through cellular detox, and he had figured out a protocol for cellular detox to chelate and remove heavy metals from the body, but also mycotoxins and microplastics and all of those toxins that are in the environment these days. And so I just started understanding, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff in the environment that is not healthy for the body, that's not compatible with the body, that is actually very harmful for the body. And so he started guiding me through the detox, started guiding me through fasting. I think over a year and a half, 2 years, I completed five-day water fasts. And combined with the detox, those were a game changer. After every water fast, I was able to eat better, digest better. My digestion improved, my energy levels improved, my clarity improved. And so that was the core of the program. And he had a very specific supplement regimen and a lot of protocols for parasites. And on a physical level, that dude is a master mechanic, I would say. He's got it very dialed in. And so we were moving along with that process. And then one thing that was really new to me was he was like, "Well, okay, we also got to rule out your mouth and cavitations." And so I had some amalgam mercury fillings, so I went to a dentist in Columbus and removed the amalgam fillings and got a better biological filling replacement. And there was a specific detox protocol that went along that as well. But he said, you also got to check the jaw. He's like, were your wisdom teeth removed? I said, yeah. He said, okay, so you got to rule out cavitations. And so I had not heard of this term before then, but he taught me that so cavity is a hole in your tooth, cavitation is a hole in your jaw. And so what I learned in the process is I think it was something like 80% of the time, wisdom teeth extraction don't heal properly, and the tissue over top inside the mouth that you could see heals, so it looks like it's healed properly, but the actual cavity where the tooth was removed does not heal properly. And so I got a 3D cone beam scan, sent it to my local dentist, and they took a look at it and they said, "Oh no, Jeremy, you're perfectly fine. Like there's nothing wrong. It looks like you're good." So I told Dr. Pompa, and he said, "Nah." He's like, "This is kind of a specialty thing. You got to send it to a good specialty dentist. My guy, he's the best, Dr. Jerry Curatola, New York City, Rejuvenation Health, Rejuvenation Dentistry. Send the scan to Jerry, have him take a look at it." So I sent the scan to Jerry, and I remember there was all kind of weird back and forth because it was like on a CD-ROM and it got lost, and then I had to send another one. It's like, oh my gosh, how much do we have to do just to get this reading? And but I hop on a consult with Jerry, and he's reading the scan, and he's looking. He's like, okay, let me see. He's like, oh, okay, oh, well, yep, okay. And it turned out I did have cavitations, three, and one of them was one of the worst that has ever seen. It was like an inch deep cavity in my jaw that never healed properly. And so I get a appointment on the books, fly to New York City. He was on Park Avenue office at the time, meet him and get the cavitation procedure. And when I got the cavitation procedure, Jerry did, it was 2 days. First day was one of his assistants. The second day was Jerry himself. And you could see it on the camera. And it was like, I could see as he opened up my jaw, there was this like cavity filled with this black fluid. There was mold in there. You could see the white mold in there. And it was essentially just this like cave where my immune system couldn't get, where my detoxification pathways couldn't get. And it was these hidden infections in the jaw that were disrupting the energetics of my body as I understand it. And the way Jerry explained it to me is like the teeth are like circuit breakers, like the breaker on your electric panel. And if you got a nasty infection there, the breaker's turned off. And those ones were related to my gut. And so that like brain gut access, like there was this disruption where like my body's natural ability to protect itself, maintain balance, fight off infections, restore equilibrium, like that communication was all disrupted because of this hidden infection in my mouth. And so what they do is they clean out the cavity, they get all the toxins out of there, they take blood out of your arm, get your platelet-rich plasma, they use a laser to regenerate and stimulate bone growth. They put the plasma back in there so there's this material to grow. Again, I'm not an expert on it, but like this is conceptually how I understand it and how I experienced it. And then they graft some bone over there, and then they, seal everything up, and then all of a sudden the infection's gone and your body's in a healing state to regenerate that tissue. And so for me, this was a game changer. I remember getting this procedure done, and my body went into a wild healing crisis after this. I was in New York City, was in the city for another day or two, and before leaving town, I remember at the Airbnb, like it was upstairs. I think we were staying in Brooklyn. Went to the sauna one morning to try to like detox a little bit and sweat some stuff out. And I came back from the sauna, and like I was walking up the stairs and I would just collapse. And like for 10 minutes, I couldn't even move. My body was just like incapacitated. And this would happen again and again with lessening frequency as time went on for I don't know, the first several days. And then Dr. Pompa shared another protocol after that, just to purge viruses, infections, parasites, all of that from the body. And I didn't have a solid bowel movement for a month. My body released and released and released and released and released. But at the end of that month, that was one of the single biggest on a physical level turnarounds for my health. And healing up those hidden infections in the jaw gave me real insight to looking at hidden infections in our buildings and the areas where this is also wreaking havoc in the environments we live, work, and play in. But for me, that was a game changer. And then all of a sudden, I was able to start eating berries and fruits again and more carbs and onions and garlic and all these things that I couldn't touch without my system just erupting, things really started shifting and my clarity started coming back, my energy started coming back. And then from there, I continued for another year and a half of detoxing, but getting that mouth work done and cleaned up was like a critical catalyst for the next year and a half.
Yeah. Wow. Now, what is the like? How long was this journey? Because I understand that you were doing research for a while before you came across Dr. Pampa. And by the way, I think this is so interesting because when you said cellular detox, I actually went through cellular detox as well.
Hmm.
Um, the packets, the box,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
that helped me tremendously. And I did his protocol as well. So one of the issues that I had, as well as you, and one day I'll share my healing journey. But it was, and I forgot about this when we had spoken before, but mold and very high levels of the heavy metal as well. And people don't realize what our bodies store from years of being exposed. And so there was that, and then we had I had very severe Lyme's disease for me symptoms, and I treated that in a different way. But doing the cellular detox packets was one of the healthiest times in my life where I came out of like the huge food sensitivity issues, um, just the brain fog and all that, those symptoms, chronic fatigue, the gut issues, the nervous system issues. Because what one of the things that and I know is that your gut and your mind they're connected. Your gut is your second brain, so when your gut is wreaking havoc, it's not going to be pleasant up here. It's just not, because they're so interconnected. And so I say, like, for sure, you were an overcomer. You got to the other side. How long was that process for those who are listening who might be in the midst right now of feeling like I have no idea what's going on? Nobody's been able to figure it out. I've been to all the doctors and all of that. We're not trying to necessarily promote Dr. Pompa, but we would definitely, because he made a difference in your life, and I didn't share with you the difference that he made in my life until right now, because when you said cellular detox, I'm like, oh yeah, I did that too, but it was such a while ago, because my husband had his healing journey too from Dr. Pompa. But how long was that? And you're probably still in the span of maybe doing some healing now, but from your 20s when you started to where you are now, or where you felt like you like got over the hump or you overcame, how long was that process about?
Yeah, I think around 26, 27, things started getting really severe. By 27, 28, is when I really started the voracious self-study, and I was in that phase for about 4 years before I reached out to Dr. Pampa, and that was at 32. And then those first 2 years of detox were the big ones. And, those got me healthy enough to go on the next stage of my journey. And I think for me, I realized, and the interconnectedness of the physical, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual. For me personally, when I was so bogged down with the physical, like I couldn't access the emotional. I couldn't really sit with the negative mental loops that were there for me to visit, the shadow stuff. I couldn't review my past life and not my past life, but review like my earlier life and see the wounding and where some of my patterns came from that were really not working for me anymore. And so by doing the physical and getting the physical body healthy, then I was able to start accessing the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. But it was a good like 6 years, and I feel like living in this world today, it's constantly the work is to stay sovereign, to stay coherent, and stay in harmony and balance. And so, sometimes I get off and work through something. Maybe it's a gut thing, maybe it's an emotional thing, maybe it's a mental thing or a business thing, a career thing. But now I feel like because of all the trying times that I've gone through, I've just developed like a really great awareness and set of tools where I'm like, okay, this doesn't have to go on for years and years and years again. I know what to do. Like I've got the energy to take care of it. I've got the experience. I got the resources. And so you just keep tending and maintaining and coming back to balance when the world or my experiences knock me off a little bit. And I think that's the purpose, to maintain that harmony and balance so I could show up and live as my mission and be the person I'm required to be to do the things that I know I'm here to do.
Yes, I love that. About all those, you touched on so many parts. It's not just the physical part. We know that there's the spiritual part, there's the emotional part, and sometimes we are so unwell, or we're so stuck that we can't even look at the wounding, like you said, that you were able to connect the mind, body, and soul, and bring it all together. What kinds of things you might have done for the mental part, and then the spiritual part, to help your whole body get in harmony?
Yeah. So the first thing that I had started doing, like on the mental part, is right when I was in New York City and had the cavitation procedure, I also found Joe Dispenza's work and the book Becoming Supernatural. And I started doing those meditations every morning, being really intentional about the mental and then therefore emotional state that I was choosing and choosing to create from, and becoming more aware of when I wasn't living from that state. Those meditations were huge for me, and there's a whole story around the purge that went along with that. A car crash, a drive-by shooting, and being shot at walking down the street in an attempted robbery in like a 3 or 4 month period. It was wild, but really ignited me onto another stage of my journey and traveling. And then from the spiritual perspective, connecting with a really beautiful medicine community, or community that shared indigenous wisdom and ancestral wisdom. And that was huge, understanding the ancient ways and traditional medicine, connecting with nature and Mother Earth. And this all led me to living in Peru for a year and a half and experiencing this culture that was just so alive, and these lands that were so alive, and these mountains where you could just feel the energy of everything, and having some really, really beautiful experience with some wise people that really took their craft really seriously and allowed me to experience some things directly that opened me up to understanding that everything really is energy. There's a link between that feeling in my stomach and the emotion of shame or guilt or disappointment or um, uh, any of those negative emotions, and that they were intimately tied to the physical because I felt it. And after that year and a half in Peru, I really connected deeply with my mission and understanding the power that our environment has on us, that the space we live in has on us, and it shaped the work that I'm doing today and what I know I'm spending the rest of my life doing.
That's incredible. And we will definitely touch base on that in part two, where we'll be able to talk about what you do now for business and helping people live in an environment that is healing and true to themselves. But I want to share the scripture real quick. When you talk about what part of your healing journey was listening. It was listening to those who had already had healing, who had gotten to the other side, who had already had overcoming happen for them. So out of my book, Making Jesus Your Habit, it says in James 1:19, it says, "So then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath." Which means, we don't need to get back at each other. It's about listening to one another, hearing one another, and being slow to speak, careful to listen. And I hear that you did that part of your journey. Also in Proverbs 2:2, it says, "So that you incline your ear to wisdom and apply it to your heart to understanding." And I bet that there was a lot of that you were able to apply things to your heart and be able to heal your heart, be able to heal your mind, your body, your soul, all at one time, because it's all one thing. And so it's been beautiful hearing a bit of your healing journey. Thank you for sharing that with us today. It has been interesting, definitely, for me to hear, and I can't wait to share part two about how you're on the other side, you have overcome, and now you have this beautiful business that you've created to help others heal. And so go ahead and share with our listeners how they can hear that how to get to you, how to reach you, and how to find out what you're doing to help people heal in their homes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, my profession is I'm a designer, an architectural designer, and my company GeoAlchemy Studio is dedicated to helping the world get healthier through the spaces we occupy. So, creating homes that heal rather than harm. And the easiest way to connect with me is look at geoalchemy.studio or Instagram GeoAlchemy Studio. And either through my website or on the Instagram, you could find a link where the first step to connect with me is to book a complimentary private consultation. And this is a short video chat where I learn about your goals for your home or your office or your wellness center and how I could support you in creating a home or wellness center for wellness, human thriving, and a world where the structures we occupy heal rather than harm.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us today. And as always, you can always contact me at buildingchristianroots.com for your coaching, leadership, and speaking interests and need. Until next time, thank you. Much love, Olivia K.
Thank you.